Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving headfirst into some really potent energies this week. We're looking at an astrological forecast that feels, well, both intensely personal and potentially, global in scope. So, our mission today is really to unpack the key insights, the potential challenges, and of course, the opportunities highlighted in our source material. We've got an astrological reading for the week of June 9th through 15th, 2025, from Tarot by High C, plus some notes on a major year-long planetary shift. Jupiter moving into Cancer. Think of this deep dive as your guide, maybe, to navigating what sounds like a pretty pivotal moment. Okay, let's get into it.
Right, yeah, the reading, it really doesn't pull any punches from the get-go. It calls this week pivotal and intense.
Pivotal, wow.
Yeah, it says the heat is, like, really being turned up. One of the most significant weeks of the year, apparently.
Significant. Okay, that sounds like a week where you might want to buckle up a bit. What makes it so potentially impactful?
Well, the material points to the potential for unexpected events that have the potential to shake up the world as we know it.
Hmm.
It even offers some reference points, suggesting these energies could connect potentially to events around 15 July 2024, things like the start of the RNC, maybe a VP candidate announcement, and also it mentions a culmination of challenges. Challenges to existing political, legal, religious systems that, might have been building since last August and December of 2024.
Okay, but it's important. We're clear here, right? The source is looking at astrological connections to those dates, not like endorsing any specific viewpoint.
Absolutely, yes. That's crucial. It's about exploring potential astrological influences, not taking a side on the events themselves.
Got it. So it's not just personal feelings then, but maybe larger currents at play. In the middle of all that intensity, what's the core challenge the source highlights for us personally?
It's a powerful one, actually. The dare to distinguish what feels good from what's actually good for us.
Ooh, yeah.
When everything feels heightened, that line can get, well, pretty blurry.
I can definitely see that. What kind of scenarios maybe make that distinction tricky this week, according to the source?
Well, it describes a whole series of balancing acts this intensity brings up, like, how do you feel your emotions deeply without getting completely overwhelmed,
Hmm.
Or that tension between speaking your authentic truth versus, like, potentially torching important relationships.
Right, that fine line.
Exactly. It's that dance between making wise changes that actually serve you versus just sort of rebelling for rebellion's sake.
Hmm.
You might feel pulled between craving comfort and needing confrontation, or wanting to expand but hitting limits, or even just feeling like a total homebody versus this sudden urge to wander.
That push and pull sounds pretty exhausting, honestly. But I'm guessing there's an opportunity in that tension.
Absolutely. The reading really highlights that this intensity can bring incredible clarity. It's a chance to really sense what no longer fits in your life.
Ah,
And the message is strong. Let it fall. Let it shift. Let it teach. And then build better. The key isn't running away from the truth that gets revealed, but, facing it and actually rewriting the story with it. It's about courageous honesty with yourself and with the world around you.
okay, so that's the big picture for the wind, this pivotal intensity, the call to distinguish what truly serves us. Let's zoom in now on the daily astrological weather because the source gets pretty specific.
It really does. Starting with Monday, which looks like a pretty packed day astrologically. First up, we have Mercury square Saturn.
Mercury communications, Saturn structure. Squaring means tension.
Exactly. Mercury's our mind, communication, how we process things. Saturn brings structure, discipline, but also, yeah, obstacles or challenges sometimes. Put them in a tense square, and the reading notes, it can bring on heavy thoughts.
Okay, heavy thoughts. Makes sense. What else might that look like in practice?
It can create obstacles or delays, particularly in Mercury-ruled areas. Communications, transport, technologies. Could be tech glitches, travel snags, misunderstandings. The reading also mentions people might just not be in the mood for lighthearted banter, and that the peanut gallery-like public criticism or unsolicited negative opinions could be quite loud.
Okay, so watch out for friction there.
Definitely. And still on Monday, Mercury is also squaring Neptune.
Ah, Neptune. Fog, dreams, maybe illusion.
You got it. The reading calls this aspect intellectually foggy. So when Mercury, the mind, clashes with Neptune, the fog machine, basically,
Right.
it creates potential for miscommunications or misperceptions. It can be genuinely tough to get on the same page with people. So because of this, the source explicitly advises against having meaningful discussions or the signing of critical documents on Monday.
Good practical advice.
Yeah, wait for the fog to clear, basically, before
Yeah.
making those big decisions.
Okay, and Monday still isn't done. Venus square Pluto too. Venus is relationships, values. Pluto is power, transformation. Uh-oh.
Oh, is right. This combination is certainly intense. The reading says this aspect makes it a day that kind of craves drama. Our darkest feelings and desires get stirred and shaken.
Wow. How might that play out in relationships?
Intensity is the key word. Could manifest as being stubbornly possessive or suspicious. And the source notes people might finally feel like they have to release a barrage of hard truths.
Ouch. Sounds volatile.
It does. But interestingly, the reading adds that tempers flaring today might feel surprisingly calm and breezy tomorrow. So maybe sharp, but possibly fleeting for some. Worth keeping in mind.
Phew, okay. Just getting through Monday sounds like a feat.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Wednesday. Hopefully a bit lighter.
Wednesday does bring a definite shift, yeah. We have Mercury sextile Venus. Now, unlike those 10 squares on Monday, a sextile aspect generally means ease, opportunity.
Okay, good. Mercury communication, Venus relations, so smoother connections.
Exactly. The reading says this aspect eases up conversations and relations. Things might just flow a bit better.
Ah, a potential breather then. What opportunities does the source see here?
It's highlighted as potentially a better time for negotiations, or if you're, in the mood to make a move. Communications could be clearer. The advice is to approach interactions with compassionate honesty and make decisions based on your true values, not fears.
Values, not fears. I like that. And Wednesday is also a big one, the full moon in Sagittarius.
Yes, a major lunar event. Full moons often illuminate things, right? Bring stuff to the surface. And Sagittarius is all about truth, vision, beliefs, expansion.
So putting those together.
The reading presents this full moon as a time for new levels of creativity, courage, truth, vision, and confident action to actualize dreams. Big stuff. It encourages being flexible and adaptable under this energy and really prioritizing aspiration, principles, and improvement.
So it shines a light on what's holding us back.
Precisely. It illuminates whatever has been clouding our direction, diluting our purpose, draining our energy, or distracting our spirit. It can suddenly reveal pathways forward and maybe new doors you just didn't see before.
And the call then is, be brave enough to walk through them.
Exactly. The reading emphatically states, we no longer need permission to live our life passionately, to speak our truth, to walk away from what no longer serves us. It's quite empowering.
But there are always cautions with potent energy, right?
Always. The source warns to be careful or maybe wary of self-absorption, great shows of egotism or pride, and also impulsiveness or a lack of emotional restraint. Don't let the confidence tip into arrogance.
Makes sense. Any other pitfalls?
Yeah, watch for the urge to overcommit, maybe some emotional codependency, or just that tendency to leap without using discernment. Basically, ground that newfound confidence. Don't be reckless with it.
Okay, got it. Moving on to Friday then, we see Sun square the nodes. Explain that one. Sun is like our core self, and the nodes are destiny paths.
Sort of, yeah. The sun represents our core identity, our conscious will. The lunar nodes, north and south, relate astrologically to our soul's path for growth. That's the north node, versus our comfort zone or past patterns, the south node. A square aspect means tension between them.
So tension between where we are and where our soul wants us to go.
That's a great way to put it. The reading calls it a time for course correction. It highlights a potential conflict between the mind's tendency to rationalize, which might be stuck in old ways, and the soul's directives, which are pushing us towards, say, compassion and forgiveness for growth.
So our thoughts need to catch up with our spiritual direction.
Essentially, yes. The emphasis is ensuring our words and thoughts align with where we're going, not where we've been, letting go of old narratives.
Okay, so how does the source suggest we navigate that internal conflict? It sounds tricky.
The recommended approach is really leaning into non-judgment, compassion, and forgiveness. Specifically, instead of fault-finding, shaming, or blaming ourselves or others, it's about trusting in positive outcomes, prioritizing spiritual growth over material certainty, maybe finding ways to surrender anxiety, perhaps to a higher power, through things like meditation and self-reflection.
So it's conscious choice.
Very much so. The core choice this aspect presents is clear. Choose soul over strategy, faith over fear.
Wow, okay. And finally, wrapping up the week on Sunday. Sounds like a big finale with two really significant planetary clashes. First, Mars square Uranus.
Yeah, Mars is action, energy, assertion. Uranus is sudden change, rebellion, disruption. Put them in a square.
Fireworks.
Pretty much guarantees fireworks, yeah. The reading points to potential for rebellious streaks. And it repeats that theme of unexpected or sudden events that can lead to significant changes that shake up the world as we know it.
Hmm.
It warns that with this energy, it's just a little too easy to jump off the rails. High probability for dramatic shows of bravado and grandstanding.
People feeling provocative.
Exactly. The temptation to act out and let our freak flags fly could be strong, but the advice is caution against taking things too far.
So how do you handle that kind of volatile energy without causing, total chaos?
The key advice from the source is crucial here. Don't react, respond. Big difference.
Respond, not react.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of impulsive outbursts, find a safe outlet for frustration, movement, music, honest conversation. Something constructive. And interestingly, the reading also connects potential events under this aspect back to mid-July 2024, suggesting a possible theme or issue might resurface.
Okay, that's one clash. And the second big one on Sunday, maybe the most significant for the week, Jupiter square Saturn.
Definitely a heavyweight aspect. Jupiter is expansion, growth, belief, optimism. Saturn, as we said, is structure, limits, responsibility, reality checks, squaring each other. That's a fundamental tension.
Expansion meets contraction, kind of.
Exactly. The source describes it as a clash to redefine the future, calls it a turning point, and a push to reclaim emotional and spiritual sovereignty. Think of it as a major test of faith and a test of conscience. The reading highlights the potential deadlock between enthusiasm and pragmatism.
So you might feel really pulled between wanting big growth and facing harsh realities.
Right, making it hard to decide where our values lie. Do we push forward or do we hold back? What's wise versus what's just fear?
That sounds like a really fundamental struggle. What kind of impact might the source see from this on a larger collective scale?
It describes it as a struggle between forces that wish to grow and those that want to maintain the status quo. A real battle between expansion and discipline, belief and responsibility, emotional security versus needing raw self-leadership. The reading points to potential instability around safety, authority, autonomy, and trust, and powerful revelations around where we are still making decisions based on fear, control, or emotional avoidance. Stuff coming to light.
And does it connect this to wider world events?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It explicitly connects us to potential conflicts and challenges involving legal, political, and religious systems, describing it as possibly a significant social crisis, with possibilities for things like leadership breakdowns, emotional unrest, growing pains in the economy. It doesn't sound easy.
No, it doesn't.
And it notes the potential for much more forceful reactions to laws and regulations that limit freedoms, especially ones that seem to go against ideals of social justice, individual rights, humanitarianism, that sort of thing. The powerful conclusion from the reading on this point is just striking. It is time to face the illusions, the laws we inherited, and the outdated contracts we signed with fear.
Wow. Outdated contracts we signed with fear. That's quite a statement. Okay, so we have this incredibly intense, potentially world-shaking week, culminating Sunday with that huge Jupiter-Saturn clash. But the source material also introduces a year-long theme starting this very week. Jupiter moving into the sign of Cancer. That sounds important.
Yes, it's a really significant shift. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, luck, wisdom, enters Cancer. And Cancer is the sign associated with home, family, emotions, security, nurturing our roots. This transit starts June 9th, 2025, and lasts quite a while until June 29th, 2026. The reading notes it's been 12 years since Jupiter was last in Cancer.
12 years. Okay, so what does Jupiter spending a whole year in Cancer mean for us, personally?
Well, the reading suggests this phase increases our capacity for empathy, charity. A real softening, perhaps. It brings a strong focus on home, family, and security, and it allows for significant emotional expansion, maybe ancestral healing. It points out that things like childhood wounds could resurface, generational patterns requiring attention and resolution, and just our overall sense of belonging. These are all magnified during this year.
So deeper emotional territory opening up.
Definitely. We might feel more nostalgia, maybe feel somewhat more vulnerable at times, and have a really strong desire to protect and nurture both those we care about and ourselves.
Is there an upside to all this emotional depth?
Oh, absolutely. The great opportunity here is that enthusiasm and a can-do spirit will be on offer, especially when directed towards these Cancerian areas of life, home, family, emotional well-being. But, and this is important, the reading includes some really crucial advice. The need for good boundaries.
Okay.
Okay.
Why boundaries specifically?
Well, with increased empathy and emotional expansion, it becomes vital to know which emotions are ours and which ones we are picking up from the collective consciousness
Yeah.
to avoid getting swamped.
That's a fantastic point, especially given everything you said about the collective intensity this week. What about the bigger collective picture with Jupiter in Cancer over the next year?
The source suggests that collectively we'll be kind of forced to confront unprocessed grief, family karma, nationalistic illusions, maybe even false ideals of home that were used to divide, manipulate, and suppress.
Sounds like confronting some uncomfortable truths about our shared history and sense of belonging.
Exactly, on a larger scale. But there's huge potential for collective growth here, too. The reading talks about developing a new type of wisdom, the wisdom of the heart.
The wisdom of the heart.
Yeah, wisdom guided by empathy and intuition. It's framed as an opportunity to rebuild our personal and social inner sanctuary, finding that sense of safety and belonging within, and maybe you're reflecting it outwards. Jupiter in Cancer, being the sort of pay-it-forward planet here, is said to spread good fortune through things like acts of kindness, help when others need it, fostering an abiding spirit of humanity that knows no borders, and providing a safe space, whether that's literally shelter or just, a shoulder to lean on.
So it's a call to expand our compassion, our sense of family.
Very much so. Expanding it beyond just our immediate circles towards a more universal sense of care.
Okay, so pulling it all together, we have this incredibly intense week, potential shakeups, calls for radical honesty, that huge Jupiter-Saturn clash about the future and facing fear. And right at the start of that week, we entered this whole year-long phase where emotional wisdom, home, family, collective empathy are all magnified and potentially challenged.
It really does all loop back to that initial insight from the source, doesn't it? The vital importance of distinguishing what truly serves your highest good from what just, feels comfortable or easy in the moment. It seems to be about confronting those uncomfortable truths, allowing things that don't fit anymore to actually fall away, and then consciously, intentionally rebuilding.
Yeah. This deep dive really highlights the call to reflect, doesn't it? On the specific challenges and opportunities the source presents, both for this intense week and for the whole year ahead. It feels less like passive information and more like an invitation to engage actively.
Wow. This has been a really fascinating deep dive into a week and, frankly, a year that sounds packed with intense astrological energy. We've unpacked potential global ripples, those daily friction points, and the very significant start of Jupiter in Cancer, focusing us on emotional wisdom, home, and our shared humanity. Yeah, and I think, given everything the source material highlights, that tension between comfort and confrontation, wisdom and rebellion, faith and fear, the real question it leaves us with is, how might you choose to navigate this intense week in the year ahead? How might you lean into that empathy, that truth, and actively build that inner and outer sanctuary the reading describes? That's really something to ponder.